and talk about it, you will remember it better. Okay, I hear a lot of people say, oh, well, you can't let kids build. You know, they'll just go crazy. They won't stay on task. There's too many prims. You can't control them. I have dealt with too many prims and too many plants. They tend to like to res trees, and I have to go in and try to unres all those trees, and the grass can be real challenging to get rid of. But it's worth the pain on my part. And I hesitate. I built another island for building because I just, some of the stuff that they built is so incredible. I don't want to delete it, so I just added another island because I can do that in OpenSet. Kids like to build. They like to build with Legos. When they're tiny, they like to build with blocks. They like to build mud pies. And in virtual worlds, they like to build to show what they've learned. They just like to build. And by framing their learning around the building, they actually get really enthusiastic. In fact, Elsie, when she was doing it with her class, had to force them to go to recess. Said, no, you have to turn the computers off and go to recess. You need the activity. And that's awesome. How often do you have kids that are so into their learning that they don't want to go to recess? And so I think that using virtual worlds for learning by letting them build is a very, very powerful way to improve their. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about the grid where we have the kids doing their building. It's called Biome for Kids. It's part of the VIBE, or virtual, I can't even remember, for better education activities anyway. And we have several different grids on there. Max Chatnoir, who was, thank you, Island, I couldn't remember the I. Max Chatnoir has Genome, which she has here on Second Life, but she also has one in the Vibe group. Nova Saunders has Nova there and has quite a few archaeological islands. It does a lot of tours, a lot of educational stuff there. And I have Biome, which I used with my college students before I retired, and it is open to anybody, anytime. So feel free to visit any of those. They are always online and open. We have a couple of World Traveler and some others that are currently not running, but I plan to get them started soon. Biome for Kids is the one we're going to talk about. It is not open to hypergridding. You have to be invited. You have to fill out an application. And while I do tours, then you'll be disallowed after the tour, and it's because of security. So that it can be used in the schools, I have to keep security tight. And I do have a group of homeschoolers from the East Coast, from Maine to Florida, who are using it right now. Okay, so to start with, how you do this is you have a standard that you have to teach if you're a teacher or you want to teach, or they want to learn, which is really cool, and you give them a framework. Then you give them the task, and then you let them build. The framework could be books. videos, discussion, notes, lecture, whatever. But that's just the framework for the learning. That's not the learning itself. A lot of times we get confused about that. We think, oh, we did a lecture, so they learned. They took notes, they learned. No, that's not how they learn. They have to process that. They have to put it in their brain. They have to make connections. That's when the learning happens. And so using the virtual world to make the learning happen, using the framework, that's the way to go. This is really funny to me. I was teaching a bunch of 5th and 6th graders, 10, 11-year-olds, how to build. And I have this very extensive building tutorial. It works really well. I've had a lot of teachers go through, and they go slide by slide. They build their things. It goes down to texturing and scripting and the whole bit. And they learn a lot. So I'm on slide 4 with this class of kids, and one of them types in the background, Clowey, if we make our water phantom, can we swim in the swimming pool we built? So I turned my avatar around and I looked. They have a pyramid with some sort of a throne thing in it, a log cabin, a swimming pool, and I'm only on slide 4. None of these kids had ever been in a virtual world, and only a couple of them had ever done Minecraft. So they just knew how to, they were just born knowing how to do this. So I realized all of this tutorial and teaching them to build stuff is a waste of time. What I do now is I show them how to res a block, stretch it, rotate it, use the little menu, and then that's it. They can do everything else. They figured out how to add scripts. I'm going to show you a picture where something is scripted, and it took me 2 days to find the sound because I wanted to eliminate some of the noise from it. But teaching kids to build is a useless task because they just already know. Okay, this is a 6-year-old who built this creature. I would, if I had the ability, I'd do a 3D tour of it. He called it Charlie Poo. Those orange things are eyes, and I'm not real sure what the tube on top of its head is. That's a mouth on top of its head. I don't know. That is, he had been in world for an hour, maybe, and I showed him how to res a block and how to link through things, and that's all. And that's what he came up with. So he is a first grader. He doesn't write very well, so chat is pretty non-existent, but he can build. Okay, these are the creatures he saw that made him want to build Charlie Poo. I don't know why he named it that, but he's 6, who knows. Anyway, these were built for a class. The teacher and I created an imaginary environment. We told the students we actually had like a temperature graph for the months and everything. And they had to build creatures that were adapted to that, imaginary creatures, and then explain why those creatures were best adapted to that environment. And they blew us away. That we were so amazed. One of them had the babies were toxic, were poisonous because that way they wouldn't get eaten, but when they got big, they didn't need to be anymore. It was just amazing. The fish with the long legs was able to walk in mud, not get stuck. They all had reasons that their organisms had certain adaptations. That's real understanding of some real important science that these 5th and 6th graders grasped that I really don't think they would have grasped any other way. And yes, that's a tornado in the background with an ant hanging off of it. I'm just going to show you some of the things that students built to demonstrate their learning. I know, Max, you'll be interested in this one. They built mitosis, and I didn't even know that was there until after it was there for a while. And the other day I found some phases of the moon things I didn't know were there. It's amazing what all gets built by these kids. But they did mitosis. They put all the steps in there, and it was, built the chromosomes shaped the way they should be and divided the way they should be. And, by doing that, they understood. By actually building 3D models of cell division, they had to really understand it. And again, they did the building. We didn't do the building and say, oh, here, look at this. And I think that is such a great way for kids to show their learning. This is where and I know I don't have text for this, I'm sorry. This is alternative energy. We have biofuel down there, the corn, and they built those little corns. I think they're cute. The windmills turn, and they had sound, and it was really loud and obnoxious, and it took me forever to find it. But they turn. They figured out how to put the scripts in it so that they rotate, and they don't rotate all together, you can tell. So they have a wind farm. They also have traditional, they have an oil well on there, and all of it comes with posters or presentations on how these different energy forms work. Okay, this is about consumers. Consumers are things that eat things, and they have their little consumers they built down there. One looks like a rabbit. I don't think it's a consumer, but, well, it is because it eats grass. So, yeah, it is. It's not a producer. Anyway, so they are showing their consumers. It's not a predator. But then it gets really cool in the next slide. I didn't even know the kids knew what Pac-Man was. But obviously they did. And they knew that Pac-Man was a consumer. And this is where I'm talking about making connections. They know Pac-Man. They know Pac-Man eats, obviously. And so they were able to say, hey, Pac-Man's a consumer because he eats, just like rabbits and tigers eat. And so when I saw this, I just thought that was so funny and such a good example of how learning requires connections, and the more connections, I promise you, those students are never going to forget that Pac-Man's a consumer, and they probably drove their parents crazy explaining that to them. Here we have some chemistry. They built models of different molecules. You can see they have baking soda and ammonia. They like glow. They're really into glow. So a lot of things glow, and they don't always. I could have turned my graphics down and got a different picture, but and they also like fancy backgrounds, so the leafy things. But again, they had to learn and understand the structure of the atoms in order to be able to do that. Okay, Biome for Kid has security. I run the security as best I can. No security is 100%. There's creepy teachers and creepy 8th graders, and I do the best I can. But it has a lot more security than a lot of the other things. It's certainly more than the social media things that almost all kids are on right now. They have to fill out an application, which I review. If I'm suspicious, I will verify that they are actually a teacher. I require an email address. I monitor it as often as I can. When they log in, because the instructions on the website tell them how to log in, they can't leave that area without being invited to the group. And by me or a few other, if there's a teacher with a class in there, I'll give them that permission, obviously. But there's only a few other people that, besides the teachers, that are that have the ability to invite people to the group. They cannot hypergrid out, and so it's protected. Once they are invited to the group, they can leave the area. When they log in as a cloud. There's no bodies. They don't come in as a Ruth or a basic avatar or anything. We had problems with that. They were coming in with nipples, and that's not okay when you have fifth graders. So I made my own little animals, not as fancy as this one, because I'm not an artist like Winks and the other people that make tiny avatars. I'm not that good, but I can make balls and prim-based little avatars, and they don't know any different. So they love to be their little. They will order animals. So they, Clowey, can you make me a turtle? So I made a turtle. Can you make me a bug? So there's a ladybug. Somebody wanted a giraffe, but I never quite got that one finished. Anyway, so they are all animals. That avoids gender issues, body part issues. Should I have boobs? Should I not have boobs? And they love it. They've really enjoyed it. Even the high school kids I've had in there think it's so fun to request whatever their school animal is. And unlike in Second Life, they don't have clothes. They're just little animals. And it's been kind of fun making them. I'm usually a panda in there, but I'll play around with things. Elsie is an blue-ringed octopus. I made that specially for her. I promised her there'll never be another blue-ringed octopus. There's a really awesome jellyfish, though. You can kind of see through it, and it kind of floats around. They like that a lot. I'm going to go catch up with any questions you might have had. I can't do that and talk and flip through slides at the same time. I'm not that talented. I'm missing a slide. Oh, well. There are a whole bunch of islands on Biome for Kids. There's 2 for building. There's the landing area, and then there's a home Biome for Kids island where I have my office, which is a treehouse. And then there's it's built on Earth system science, so there's biosphere, hydrosphere, geosphere, and atmosphere, and each one of those has a classroom. Hydrosphere has a steampunk submarine classroom. Atmosphere has a flying saucer classroom. Biosphere has a treehouse classroom. And geosphere has a classroom inside in the bottom of a volcano, which, amazing to me, is the student's favorite. There's also the Mendel and Crick from Genome that Max shared with us, and Wara Wokamo from Nova Saunders Nova. Sim is there for social studies. And trying to think, well, there's Imaginary and Seaborgia for building. That slide is missing, and I apologize for that. I encourage people to investigate if they're kids and if they're teachers. I would be willing to do a tour if you'll let me know. Again, you're only allowed while you're on the tour, and then you're disallowed right afterwards because of security. Schools are real anal about security, and a lot of schools won't even do this. But I have had several schools who participated, and so far there's never been a problem. Cross my fingers, knock on wood, whatever. Please do contact me. And the website, the blog spot, has all the information you need. It has the application. I love Google because they do cool things. Anyway, so I get the application, and I know who you are. I can verify, and so on and so forth. It has a presentation and a document on how to, and I use Singularity. I use Singularity because it seems to be the easiest. I know a lot of you here use Firestorm. Firestorm has so many tabs, commands, options. When I was teaching at the university and using it, they just freaked out. It was just too much. So I went to Singularity because I could use Singularity, wasn't as scary. So that's what I use. That's what, obviously Firestorm works just fine. Any of the other viewers, except of course the Second Life viewer, work just fine. So please contact me. If you're a kid or a teacher, if you have kids, you have grandkids, you have neighbor kids, they can log in. They don't have to be part of a school. Just any kid can participate as long as I can verify that they are, in fact, a kid. I might require a Skype or a FaceTime to verify that they're a kid. I just want them to be safe. And that's really all I have. What questions do you have? I would love to answer your questions. So I'm going to open up the chat box and answer any questions that you might have. Ages, any age up through K-12, although if they're older than about 13 and it's not part of a school classroom, I recommend they go to the biome, which is my open one, because they can hypergrid out to some of the other open sim worlds if they're doing this on their own. For older kids, 13 and up, if they're doing it as part of a school, they're still going to need the security, so they can use Biome for Kids. They can use it anyway, but I would rather not have 17, 18-year-olds in here with a bunch of 6-year-olds, and, on their own time. But, again, any age up to, I have had a kid as young as 4 in there, and he was quite the builder. Couldn't chat, but he was quite the builder. What other questions do you have? Thank you, Max. I am so impressed with but I will tell you this, the older the student, the more hesitant they are. It took me a day to convince my grad students that they could build. It doesn't take me 10 seconds to convince a 4-year-old they can build. But once they did, they were able to do it. But yes, adults are afraid. They're afraid they're going to break it. They're afraid they're going to do something wrong or they can't do it. So it takes a little more encouraging. And working in a group helps because somebody will help the others. Something I want to bring up, is everybody here close enough that I can type in chat so everybody could read? For the feedback, I will do that out loud. Feedback from schools and parents, they were so impressed. They really liked it. We did do permission slips to the parents. That's always a good idea. And encouraged, explain the situation. The hard part is convincing the administrators. That's where I've run into problems. If you can convince an administrator, then it just is wonderful. If you can't, then you got problems. And they're so afraid of being sued or some creepy person. Meanwhile, there's creepy people in the school, there's creepy teachers, there's creepy, that. You can't protect your kids against everything, but that's where the problems. That's true. I always talk to my students about risk versus benefit. Risk versus benefit. That's one of my mantras of life. Everything has risk. Getting in your car has a risk. But what's the benefit? And if the benefit outweighs the risk, then you do it. So yeah, that is correct, Nuno. I have the kids teach through building.